ready to go. My name is Narendran. I'm your moderator for the session. The topic is Words and Bytes, the power of pens and voices in shaping the public narrative. I have a very eminent panel with me. So as a consequence, I'm trying to speak less and allow them to speak more. The way we want to structure it is after I say a few words, I'll invite each of the panelists to talk for 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll leave the last half an hour for a Q&A session. Any of you have questions, anyone who's listening and has questions, please type it in. If you look at your screen at the bottom, you'll see a circle with 3 dots. You press that and you'll see a Q&A option there, and you can put in your questions. CII will help me get those questions so that I can put it across to our panelists. We have with us, none of our panelists need introduction, but I think as a formality, let me go through it. We have with us Mr. Martin Wolf, the Chief Economic Commentator of the Financial Times. I think many of us have have been reading him for many, many years, and it's always great to hear him, his insights, his views. In fact, I recently heard him being interviewed by Rahul Kanwal in Mr. Arun Puri's channel to talk about his views on the world, and it was, and of course on India, and that was fascinating as always. We have Mr. Arun Puri, who's the Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of the India Today Group. Again, needs no introduction, has played a very, very important role in India over the years with India Today and in the media space in general. And of course, we have Mr. Prabhu Chawla, who's never minced his words, always been insightful and provocative. And so I'm sure we can have an exciting session if all of them humor us with their insights and their views. Media, of course, plays a very, very important role, continues to play a very important role. I think the options to distribute content have kept changing. There is polarization in many ways. So there is one view that the ability of media to shape views is limited because everyone's decided what they want to hear. They listen to what they want to hear. I recently saw a cartoon which said that how can it be fake news because it's saying what I believe in. So, so the world has changed, and a lot of people gravitate towards the channels that tell them what they want to hear. So is there a diminishing ability of media to shape thoughts? Because, while there's a lot of content out there, a lot of listeners out there, but have they all made up their mind? That is one part of it. The second part is, I think there is also difference between the way the younger demographic and the older demographic consumes media, consumes content, and India is a country which has more of the younger demographic than the older demographic. So again, how can media effectively shape minds, and what should they do to reach out to the different segments of population? We are also living in a world where globalization is on the back foot. There is more and more localization in the mindset. A big part of the population has felt that globalization has left them behind, and that encourages more local thought, more parochialism, more nationalism, and hence, as a consequence, a lot of the community is looking more inward than they traditionally did. So this is in some sense the context in which we operate in. So I will first invite Mr. Martin Wolf for his thoughts, and I'll invite Mr. Arun Puri, and I'll follow with Mr. Prabhu Chawla. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us, and over to you, Martin.
Okay. For me, this is a very unusual experience because I try very hard not to talk about the media. I talk about what I work on, which I really know much more about. So it's interesting always to think about different issues. And I have been thinking about this recently because I'm trying to write a book on a very small topic, the future of democracy and capitalism. And obviously the media are involved in this. So that's my disclaimer. The first point I would make, and I'm just going to make a few points and they're not necessarily very structured. The media are, of course, incredibly diverse. And they have become far more so largely because of the way technology is now interacting with media. The dominant media for a very long time, some centuries, were print media. Then we had television and radio, and now we've added the internet And I regard the internet as, taken as a whole and everything that goes with it, probably as significant a technological revolution as printing. And printing, to my mind, is the single most important technological innovation of the last 1,000 years. It changed everything. So we are in the middle of this huge revolution, and the creation of printing, and it's a very good parallel, just changed everything about how human beings ended up interacting with one another. The second point I would make is the media, certainly our sort of media, my sort of media, is a business. So we need to make money, otherwise we don't survive. And we make money by getting people to pay either directly for our services or paying for access to our readers through advertising, or viewers if you're on television. So we don't have an audience that is lucrative or prepared to pay, we don't have a business and we disappear. This is not true for all media at all, but it's very much true for the media we live in. So we're shaped by the market, we're part of the market. Third point, this is really about me and us, which, because I know best obviously what we do. The FT is, I'm sure by the standards of Indian media, incredibly tiny. We have, I think, 1.1 million subscribers, which is sort of an error term in India, isn't it? But it's a very specific audience, and what you've just described doesn't really apply here. The people, they are people, they're global people, they're prosperous people. They pay a lot, really, for our service, and they do so because they expected to give them reliable and business relevant information. So we can't do the fake news thing. If we do that, we're finished. So that's our business, and I write for them. So that's what I think about. And I do, so basically what I do and what we do is in the standards that you set down, very, very old fashioned, thank God. But that's what it is. We are, what we say is true. Therefore, Mr. Trump would obviously describe it as fake news. Now, I'd like finally to say, because to me, when Mr. Trump calls something fake news, he means it's true, but he wishes it weren't. Now, the final thing I want to say is a little bit about what is creating this huge upheaval in the world of media, which is, I think, in our society, more broadly, in our societies. And here I think it applies in different ways, just as much to a country like India as the UK. We are in the same world. First, we have moved out of a world which existed for a long time, probably most significantly because literacy wasn't universal, at least not fairly highly developed literacy. The world of a consensus dominated by elite opinion has collapsed. And it seems to me that it's collapsed universally. And that's partly for what the reason I outlined, and partly because of technology. And it won't come back. One of the main reasons that's happened is we are moving into a world of almost universal literacy. Now, the degree of literacy varies, but it's almost universal. And that's never happened before, never existed before. We also are moving into a world in which systems of communication not only allow everybody access to information, it allows everyone to broadcast. I mean, that's really profound. Everybody has access to the media in both directions, not just as consumers. And that means all monopolies have disappeared. And that emphasizes, that underpins and also accelerates this collapse of elite domination of opinion. And this, particularly, one aspect of that is that groups of individuals can engage with other groups of individuals who are similar to them, completely outside any possible means of control, unless you're China. You have to have a Chinese-style system to control it. So that is fundamentally transformative of the media and information landscape for all our societies. And it interacts with, reinforces and interacts with other, and this is my last point, very important changes in the politics of our societies in the broad direction of identity politics, which has many dimensions. So I have a very special niche in a small part of the media world, but broadly defined, we are clearly moving through a world characterized by social, technological, and political transformation, and all such periods are ones which one never fully understands while they're happening. You're muted. You're muted.
I think they muted me. Okay.
Yes.
Hopefully that was not a message. But I'll come back to some of what you said later because one of the comments you made was on literacy, but you also commented on reach. I think reach has gone ahead of literacy in some sense. So in countries like India, large parts of the population were still illiterate, but they're able to consume content like never before. So I think we'll come back to that, and hence the role of media is very different than it was in the past. My second comment on what you said is earlier governments could control information by controlling print and television, but at least a younger demographic, I've seen it in many countries, don't watch TV that much or don't read print as much. So again, the ability to shape their thoughts is dependent more on social media. But I'll come back to those points as we discuss with the panel. Mr. Puri, can I request you to share your thoughts? You're on mute now.
You're also on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, Mr. Puri.
You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Should we go with Mr. Chawla? You're also on mute. Ankur, can you unmute them centrally?
Yes, please. We are doing. Mr. Chawla is unmuted now, please.
Yeah, Mr. Chawla, please go ahead.
There's an interesting topic here now because I was hearing just now that you're talking about in ideological terms and whatever. As a reporter for 40 years, I have a different kind of experience here now. Earlier, when we joined journalism, we were told that we have to report objectively and all-rounded story. But Mr. Puri's favorite phrase was that it should be all-rounded. It means everything should be there. You must talk to every person who's involved in the story. But I'm restricting myself to the topic because I'm not going into other things. Because your topic is very interesting. It says, power of pens and voices shaping public narrative. Public narrative can be anything. When you talk about power of pens and voices, but I don't mean that a pen is supposed to pierce, not patronize. And that was the early definition of pen. But a pen is mightier than anything else. It meant that we must pierce what we write. It should pierce the person you are writing about. It should be objective, yes, but he should feel that there is piercing some kind of a thinking going. And bytes, which happened during post-television era I'm talking about, bytes were meant to bite, not to charm people at the time. The definition of bytes and voices is also changed, and pens and everything is also changed now. It can be different reasons because of the market corporatization of media and everything else, and media has also become like some kind of a corporate entity. Earlier Martin was talking about that government control was there earlier. I would come to say that government control was very limited. Limited number of newspapers, there were no channel at all, there was only one channel, there was Doordarshan. And there were number of newspaper, magazines and what was happening. So they could convey whatever they wanted to convey, the limited literate population of India. Now what has happened? In 2020, when you look at the media, so now the media is being entities. Most of the media houses are controlled by various corporate concerns. And what they called earlier, we were all in a business. I always assumed as a editor that media is also a business, it's not a charity at all. We looked at the media from that point of view. Okay, it is not for valuation. It is for values to be distributed there. We are writing stories that people can trust. as you rightly pointed out earlier, now people want to hear from us only what they want to hear. Our voices can be drowned by anything else. This toxic cacophony of voices which is happening all around, which becomes irrelevant. So what has happened now? Earlier there was some kind of a oligopoly of media. There are few houses very important. That it became a monopoly in the top level, at the national level. Now the monopoly has been broken by all sorts of websites coming up, all sorts of TV channels coming up, millions of YouTube channels coming up, Facebook coming up, means of communication. So bytes which are missing, which were relevant to the society, which were missing earlier, are coming in different forms. You will find small organizations which are doing very good work. There are millions of websites happening there. The question arises that earlier what we used to do as a editor, I'm going into that headlines never decided the content. It was all the content decided the headline. Now what is happening, even the Prime Minister of India when he speaks, he decides the headline first. What headline will be grabbed? 20 lakh crore rupees. It's a big headline. The content what was there, none of us could analyze on the first day that what is 20 lakhs all about. It took us almost a week when minister after minister started speaking. Even the corporate sector could not come back to us. What does it mean? When the headlines decide the content, then it becomes a problem because consumer has already taken the content as headline. So what is happening? I can hear some voice in the middle somewhere. Anyway, let me continue that about that. Earlier, what with journalism was happening? You are talking about public narrative. I think it's a misnomer. If the media think that we can shape the narrative now, that is misnomer because so much of media is available in the market that nobody can dictate the narrative anymore. And shaping what kind of narrative? But everybody committed. Voices are not available which can say, okay, this is something different. Critical voices are missing in this country because we are not raising enough questions. Earlier, how the journalism moved from one place to another, from one shape to another, I'm just trying to count out of my 40 years experience. Earlier, it was excessive journalism. Excessive journalism, that's what I'm talking about. We used to go and meet people, get information, and write about it. Now, we have gone to the stage where there is excess journalism. That what information is given to me by my access to person A, person B, that is the voice, and that is the byte. There's no difference between the byte and voice because the voice from the other side is not available. Even now, earlier we used to ask questions. Now we are seeking answer for no questions. So I'm just making a general proposition in the sense, even the court, what is the conviction now? What I'm talking about, earlier media has some kind of, for media, it was never been that conviction was a matter of convenience. Even the corporate sector is the only sector which is very consistent because for every budget they gave 9 out of 10 to everybody. So for them there's a conviction. They have never been deviating from that conviction at all. But media earlier it was that, okay, it is our conviction, not a matter of convenience. Not we can see that all of us becoming part of, okay, I can change my opinion, I can change my view, I can report accordingly. So therefore media is losing that credibility in terms of conviction. What I'm saying, what I'm writing, what I'm talking, my voice, my byte, my words, they carry some kind of a conviction. Because you know, when you look at number 10, I don't know any kind of. When you look at certain channels, you know what kind of statement is coming out of the anchor's mouth or what is coming out of the people. I remember one channel called me once 7 years ago. Before I reached there, the editor asked me, which side of the coin you are? Are you going to speak or for, against and for? I said, I'm going back because I will hear the people and talk about what is happening. So that is what is happening. That media which you're talking about shaping public narrative, I think we have to get out of this myth at the time being because monopoly of media is being broken. Now, credibility of media is also being shaken now at the moment because you talk to the people. Now people decide who they will give interview to. Whether it's one party or another party. Earlier, editors and proprietors used to decide who will get the interview and how will we do it. I remember during the emergency, George W. he was a Hindustan Times editor, and Mrs. Gandhi decided a reporter will go to cover Indira Gandhi when she goes abroad. George W. said, no, nothing will happen. So what I'm trying to tell is that media opportunities now are very limited because access to information is being denied by everybody in the system. If you don't have information, journalists without information is like a fish out of water. So if he has to survive, he has to be part of the system in which excess journalism is only the news item which you can serve to the customer. What I'm trying to say in the end, I'll try to conclude that many questions have to be raised the way we are reporting ourselves, because I'm confining myself to the media itself. Output people don't speak much because we know what their compulsions are, whatever the reasons must be there. But truth is not being reported, whether it is A party or political B party, and political parties are being blamed. I know no political leader tells any leader, you write this or you don't write this. No political leader tells anybody, okay, I'm angry with you because of you. They may not give you access. That doesn't bother. But somehow in the media, people are blaming the leadership. Because of the leadership, we can't give anything correct news. I think that has to be told to the people that is not correct. Ultimately, politicians know how to use the media. Corporates know how to use the media. But the problem is, Martin was talking about identity politics and whatnot. These are fashionable, glamorous words. Yes, we have been reporting like a Hindu, Muslim, Sikh is high, you started for terrorism. Identity politics was happening earlier also. Now in America, what is happening today, Indian media totally ignored it. For them, America doesn't exist at the moment. That is the surprising part of it, because something happened similar in India. Some of the channels, some of the journalists were speaking about it. But what is happening in America, that 40, 50 cities are under curfew, nobody is reporting about it. Media is now deciding on the basis of not what is relevant to the people, what they think people want to listen and hear. There is a disconnect what people want to hear or listen. We have decided, okay, what the leaders are telling, this is what people want to listen. That's the change which is happening. So shaping the narrative, I don't think media is in a position at the moment to shape any kind of narrative, because its bytes don't bite, its words don't pierce. That's the state of media currently, I would like to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chawla. I just have two comments which I'll leave with you and we can discuss later. One is right early in your commentary, you said media is a business, but in any business you need to build trust with your customers. So the question is, who are the customers of media? Is it the government? Is it the public? Who is your customer? And how do you build trust with that customer, particularly if it's a consuming public? And the second question, which is more linked to what you said towards the end, are you seeing the appetite for people reducing for global events and just focusing on what is very local? And, like you said, most people in India, are they really bothered about what's happening in the US, or they're just more concerned about what's happening in the neighborhood? So I'll come back to those 2 points when we discuss. Mr. Puri, I think you're unmuted now, so look forward to hearing your views.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll speak in the context of today's corona pandemic, and I think the subject is in relation to shaping the public narrative in it. So the first thing I would like to say is that this pandemic has in fact increased the viewership and readership of media. People are paying more attention to media. They're consuming more media. That's a fact right across the world, which I think is a good thing which has happened. Secondly, there is also, I would say, two things happening. One is the fact that with so much media there is also a lot of what I would call disinfo media, which is a disinformatic, in fact, like a pandemic. A lot of disinformation which is going on, especially from what I would call the WhatsApp university, people sending forward from all over the place, which is perhaps not accurate information, spreading rumors, etc. And this has had a counter effect of, in fact, people coming back to trusted brands, trusted media, people who have got a track record of delivering accurate and credible information. I think that's a very important development which has happened, and it's a good development. And in this confusion, these big brands provide complete clarity try to provide clarity in terms of the kind of information which is being broadcast. And I must also say that today distribution, as Martin said, is not an issue, because most media is now in every platform, and digital gives you the ability to get all kinds of experts on your panel, and and the fact that you can access people from all over the world, I think gives you a wide variety of opinion, which is available to the consumer. And a place like India, you have a highly competitive situation. Yes, you may be polarized in a way that some people, you know what they're going to say before they say it. But there are also people who believe in independent journalism, and I don't think we should discount that. As far as shaping the narrative goes in the current situation, I would say it's a mixed bag. For example, I would say that the way the lockdown happened in India with 4 hours notice, there was no questioning by the media of whether the lockdown was a good thing or a bad thing. We all got into a patriotic mode and went into the fact that the lockdown was necessary. Now only perhaps it's being debated whether it has worked or not worked. Perhaps at that moment of time with the information available, that was the right thing to do. But I don't think there was enough questioning going on. And I probably that we in India followed the international narrative of lockdowns and controlling the pandemic. Perhaps we would have had our own solutions. The things which I think worked in shaping the public narrative was the fact of the migrant crisis, which was shown on TV, which the government seemed to be in denial for a while, till the whole thing blew up in the media and action started being taken. This also led to transport being organized, migrants going back and forth. So in that sense, the media helped in shaping the public narrative. Prabhu mentioned the fact of the 20 lakh stimulus, which looked like a big deal at one time, and then suddenly we started dissecting it, and it turned out to be that was not such a big deal, and the whole debate about whether the revival will happen or not happen, I think the debate is still on. There again, I think the media has played a good role in exposing the fact of what this 20 lakh package meant. And I think that's in a way shaped the narrative in this present pandemic. I think for the time being, I think that's all I'll say in terms of the public narrative. So in terms of what the media's role has been in this current situation.
Thanks, Mr. Puri. I think I already have a few questions, so I'm going to start with Sunil. Sunil, you wanted to ask the first question?
So, this is a question for Arun. Arun, at this time, and this is going back to the point both Martin and Prabhu made earlier about the way media is currently being driven. What do you think it would take today for a new establishment to set itself up and to be one which is believed and trusted? In the current environment, when you talked of the WhatsApps, when you talked of multitude of media, there are so many influences out there. If some new player came in, how does that new player establish itself as a trustworthy one?
Any media can only establish its trustworthiness by what it delivers. You're on judgment every day or every minute if you're on 24-hour news television, right? So credibility is built over a period of time. You don't come in and say that I am the most credible source. And today, as Tom Friedman has been talking about, is that a lot of us have lost our cognitive ability to tell what is true and what is false. So I think credibility is not built overnight. It's built over a period of time. It's built according to the kind of information you deliver and the kind of background you come from. If you are owned by a particular interest or a political party, there are so many people in the media in India today who are in fact, not in the business of news, but in the business of business, right? Media is a business, but media has also got a social responsibility which it must carry out. It cannot be, it's like a doctor has a medical code, right? In terms of the fact that it has to stick to some kind of ethics for their profession. And I believe media is in that kind of profession, which I would call a noble profession. And you must follow those unwritten rules of being serving to your ethic of your profession. That's how you build credibility.
Yeah. So I have another question. This is from Janmejay Sinha, who's chairman of BCG in India. Isn't defining media becoming difficult today? A person like Trump can tweet and create a narrative, especially to his base, and solidify the polarization of his base. Also, people only consume the opinion they agree with. I think we've discussed that earlier in this session. So the earlier role of media isn't changing and dying. So this is the question. Martin, you want to comment on that? You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, I should be. I'm sorry. Yeah, I discussed this. Media implies in the word, its Latin origin, that you're between events out there, news, whatever, the story, and the consumer. And the obvious reality about the technological revolution is that it has generated disintermediation, with the word media appearing in there. It's been disintermediated, and that's the reality. So the media as a business and the organizations that go with it continue to exist, although with profound novel pressures upon it. And at the same time, there has grown up an enormous wealth, and this has already been mentioned by Mr. Chawla, enormous wealth of direct mediation, direct contact without intermediation. Now, you could define Twitter as media, and in some respects it is. So you're talking about Trump and his readers. But Twitter, and though it's changing just a little, Facebook, all the other social media, don't do what traditional media did. They performed, they set themselves up as not performing any sort of editorial function. Therefore, they were merely media in the technical sense. They allow person A to to get direct contact with millions of consumers of person A's writings, in this case, tweets, without any editorial intermediation. Now, that's a new form of media when the media doesn't perform the editorial function we associate with media. And that is, I think, quite transformative. Now, of course, we can say there's always been propaganda of this kind, but when it was done through print pamphlets, it was much more difficult. So it began to become like this with radio in the 30s, but only a limited number of people had access to using the radio. It was a one-way medium, as I described. So I think what Trump and all the other politicians who are good at this have been doing is to get rid of the editorial function quite comprehensively, and lots more people have taken advantage of this than was ever possible before. And that's a transformation of the way people interact in terms of their understanding of the world. And I think it's one of those genie that's out of the bottle and that we're not going to put it back.
So do you see a situation where journalists or analysts or commentators such as yourselves are able to build credibility much more than platforms or newspapers or television channels or whatever, so that you're able to monetize your brand as an individual, as a journalist who's more credible than the platforms that are available out there?
This is an interesting one, and I don't know what the others feel. there was a view that this would happen. But I think with a few exceptions, there are a few, it has not on the whole happened. And where there are exceptions, it's because the people have very considerable weight in and of their own right. I thought 20 years ago that the FT brand might cease to have any value at all. But actually, this is a niche, but it's always been a niche. That's not new. The FT actually has more readers than it has ever had before, which is quite interesting. But the people who are interested in quality and who know they can't assess the quality of everybody covering a wide range of subjects, some of which they're not expert on, still seem to rely on brands which have built up a reputation for reliability. And and you asked the question, which I thought was a very good one, which is how do you build up credibility as a brand? And the answer is it takes a long time. It really takes, but that's a niche. It's a very, very important niche of the news information world, but I recognize it's a niche.
Mr. Chawla, do you think it's easier to build a brand now as a person, as a journalist, because you can broadcast to the world? You don't need a platform as you did earlier. Do you think it's possible? You're on mute, please.
Yeah. In the present context, I would say there is a need for a credible brand at the moment. Yes, we had to take a lot of time to create a credibility, because I'm very frank, Indian media has lost credibility as it was earlier. Earlier, you say some word, even the government has to resign. One story appeared in India today, and the Prime Minister of the country resigned. Now you write so many stories after story, bytes after bytes, nothing happened. It means there is some problem there. The credibility of the media has suddenly suffered. Even when Arun was talking about migrant labor, migrant media woke up much later. At my level, at a small newspaper and small thing, I was the first person to put a video, 12 minutes video on my YouTube channel about don't treat the Indian labor as villains, corona villains, treat them well. It was the 1st of May. A couple of thousand people watched it. But now 2 weeks later, I find when the people started dying on the roads, they were walking on the road, suddenly media discovered they were also there. Before that, they were all busy talking to various people. If you look at the TV channels, and now what has happened, much more interesting, newspaper space is being consumed by the political leaders. Yesterday, 80 political leaders from the ruling party wrote 80 articles in the newspaper. Even the letter from the Prime Minister became an article in some of the newspaper. That is a change in the content we are talking. Ministers are writing, political leaders are writing, columnists, intellectuals, reporters, opinion leaders. Now I'm saying bottom lines are becoming more important than the bylines. So credibility of the media is suffering because you find what they spoke in the TV last night, Prime Minister, or Sonia Gandhi, or Rahul Gandhi, that finds the same place in the morning newspaper. So what is the differentiate what I'm trying to say? There's no comment on that. Whether the letter written by somebody or speech written by somebody, this is happening in the newspaper media. So I can't defend the 90-80% of the media these days is more opinion than news. Even opinions lead the news these days, front page or inside. Earlier, what was happening, views and bytes were decided on the basis of information which we used to collect on the street. Now, bytes are first decided on the basis of agenda. Arun spoke about WhatsApp industry now these days. I'm aware of certain sites because in the morning at 8 o'clock, some of the editors of the country, including the news channels, get a WhatsApp from a particular individual in each party and they run that news story throughout the day. I've got evidence in my book now. How many stories, lead stories of various news channels have been run on the basis of a WhatsApp coming from a political party? These turn out to be wrong later on. Question is that no fact checking is happening, no second source is being done there. So media is becoming like some kind of a brand, which is everybody knows which channel is going to say what, which magazine is going to put out what. Earlier there was no predictability about anything. Now there is a predictability of the media that is very dangerous for India. Earlier there was no predictability. You could see that something is coming next morning. Wow, this is something that happened. Now you look at the 20 newspapers in the morning, you will find almost the same headline. predictability, variety of the media is losing at the moment. It has to come back. Building a brand is required at the moment. The question you asked it, yes, we need a brand now which talks about, doesn't take the headlines which are appearing in the TV in the previous night, next morning are there. It doesn't talk about only political leaders all the time. Look at the bifurcation of the news items today. COVID, of course, is an unparalleled thing has happened. COVID is taking about 80% of the space. After that, you look at is who takes the largest space in terms of opinion. Maximum place is given to the political opinion in the media these days. That is what is worrying about it. And therefore, the question you put it, there is a need in India for a brand which has much more credibility, which is independent, which is not afraid of the government or corporate sector, which speaks the voice of the journalists and the people. As you said, people want to hear they have made up their mind. Yes. But those who have made up their mind, they are only 5 to 2% million. They are the monopoly people. They have made up their mind they want to hear. They want to hear everything good about deficit. You want to say, okay, why deficit has gone up? Nobody wants to say, why deficit of the United States of America is 15%? We go beyond 4%, we start crying. All the corporate sectors are speaking. Japan is 20%. Public debt to the GDP in Japan is 280%. We are talking about it. When government of India takes debt, all of you start talking about it. Media start talking about it. Journalists start talking about it. You talk about incentive for you. Talk about subsidies for other people. So these are the things which media has to talk about. India has grown from 91 to 2022. If you look at in the market, stock market, it has gone up from 5,000 to 40,000. Inequalities of incomes have gone up. 1% of the people last 2 years got 68% of the new capital generated. These are the issues which media has to talk about it. India has grown, is much stronger now. We have got a much better leadership now. But yes, at the bottom of the pyramid, you go down, India is weakening at the bottom. It has to come, you have to go from you all supported the supply side model from 91 to 2022. Now all of you are talking about demand. You should have thought about demand, Ganjiran. Okay, you give the supply, give us the demand also. Now all of you are talking about demand, supply, demand side, demand side. Why there is some kind of inherent weakness in our economic and social policies? That was the job of the media to support. We have not done it. Yes, I told you there is a need for a credible media alternative. There are credible organizations now which are respected by the country as a whole. But they may be going in numbers. But in terms of percentage of population, literate population, total number may be going up. As a percentage of people who want to read newspaper or see TV channel, that is going down.
Thanks, Mr. Chawla. Mr. Puri, I'm coming to you. You're on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself while I ask the question. So my question is, in the current context with the democratization of information, one would assume that it's easier to shape views because people have access to far more information than they did earlier. So despite that, why do you see this kind of polarization and people only wanting to listen to what they want to hear?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm a great believer in the marketplace. People the marketplace will sort out which audiences want to watch what. If they want credible information, they want information which is accurate, which they can believe in, then those are the media outlets which will survive. Right? So I think that one should believe in the marketplace. In India, the democratic place, you have multiple media. Now you have not only one kind of media dominant, which is print or TV. It's digital, print, TV. Everything is happening at the same time. So I think that one should believe in the marketplace. There will be credible media. There will also be media which is not credible. And I think that if people don't want that kind of media, that media will not exist. So let's not get too caught up in the fact that everything is wrong with the media. Media is an essential part of a democratic setup, right? And I think that it plays an important role in society. Let us not damn the media because there are a few bad apples in the media. That's my major point in this, is the fact that believe in the marketplace, and the marketplace will sort out according to what consumers need and want at a particular time.
Thanks, Mr. Puri. Mr. Martin Wolf, I have a question for you from the audience. Do you really think an editorial is required in today's dynamic environment?
Well, the question is, it comes back.
All of the editors.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes. Well, this is the question of what is the editorial function broadly defined. So it's not just the editor. If you're buying a product like ours, you're buying an editorial process. That's essentially what you're getting, and I think the value of that works something like as follows. So and it goes back to the question of how do you trust something? What makes you trust something? The most important reality for all of us is that pretty well every bit of knowledge we have about the world, we've got from somebody else. It's not based, I'm talking about all of us. There are areas of which one has direct experience, but that's a tiny fraction of our knowledge of the world. It's true for me. So I get my knowledge from the world from other people, the writings of other people, the films of other people, conversations perhaps with other people, but I get them from other people. And I have to decide which of this immense array of views, opinions, facts, stories I should believe. How do I do that? How does anyone do that? Well, the answer is quite clear. You develop, we are taught as children, if we're lucky, processes which underpin trust, certain views about how the world works, about how science works, what an authoritative investigative process consists of, what neutrality and objectivity is. And then over time, you also get to learn which of the media, the institutions, the sources of information you have are relatively reliable by those lights. This is a socialization process, lifelong, and you're always taking things on trust. Okay? And the simplest way, I think, of generating usable trust and useful trust for people is institutional. That is because it then covers a very wide array of information, some of which you know a bit about personally, but lots of which you don't know. The FT writes, for example, just happen to know it, every day we publish something which is about as large as a book. And a lot of it is about stuff I don't know about. I trust it because it's produced by my colleagues and I know the process. Now, so that's what editors do. That's why you trust them. Editors are people who have done this all their lives, have a certain training and thinking. They are dealing with journalists who have also done it all their lives. There are processes which are involved in, which have been discussed in sourcing, in checking sources, multiple sources, deciding what is a reliable source of information, what is not a reliable, all of which is very difficult. And if you don't have that around, my view is you don't actually know anything. You just have guesses. Well, that might be true. And obviously for a very large proportion of humanity, that is indeed the world they live in. They don't have any reliable sources. They don't know what a reliable source is, but they're ones they've come to believe in for some completely different reasons. They tell them what they want to hear. I think you mentioned that. They tell them what they find ideologically pleasing. They just have fun stories, so they ought to be true. They're wild stories, so they'd like them to believe whatever. That's a different set of processes. But in the end, authoritative processes rely on a system, an institutionalized system, to make, which is like science itself, scientific, which often goes wrong. And without those things, we know nothing about the world at all. And if you don't believe in any of those things, we are in total informational chaos, which I think in significant measure we are. And now, I was interested in what Mr. Puri said, because it's what I would like to believe, but I don't. And the reason I don't is it's absolutely true. The market works. Yes, I'm a real believer in the market, but the market believes to give what consumers want, and consumers don't necessarily want accurate information. They want lots of other things as well as that. And there are lots of businesses that have emerged, and some of them are not really very much businesses, and some of them are businesses to provide the consumers with exactly what they want. It just doesn't happen to be accurate information. And that's a problem, but you just have to live with it because that's freedom.
Thank you. Mr. Chawla, I have a question for you. So this question is again from the audience. Is the media not overplaying the COVID-19 scenario, considering that there are people of all mental capacities, some are strong, some are weak? Overplaying has a negative impact. So this is with a question mark.
I agree that COVID is being overcovered because everybody, I wrote in one of the columns that even the person who is a heart surgeon becomes a COVID expert, and who is a person, somebody medicine, he also becomes there. You look at the experts. I've never seen so many COVID experts in my life as I've seen during the last 20 days. Anybody from Michigan, anybody from Odisha, everybody is an expert in COVID. Because that's the problem is because we have stopped collecting information, we are collecting opinion these days. That's the change that happened in the media. Because it's the cheapest way of collecting information. You get somebody on the Skype, or you get in the Zoom, or you get the information. And 3 hours from 7 to 10, you find 56%, I can name them, they will be moving from one channel to another, giving the same opinion. So that's the prime time news which we are getting. The question is, nobody talking about, during the COVID time also, we are all talking about privatization of happiness. All the rich people are there. What is becoming privatization of happiness and socialization of misery. That's what has happened. And media is not able to cover the misery of the millions of people who travel. How many people have died on the railway platform? So what I'm saying that in the process, what we are giving as Martin was saying, Arul is right when he says credible media sells. And that's why India today, after 45 years, is still the #1 platform in the country. So the question is, after people start feeling bored with the same opinions, I am saying now, media is no more disseminator of information. Martin was saying editorial is missing. Media has become editorial now. There's nothing news there. That's the change that happened because he's taking their processes. Yes, we have gone through the processes, how fact checking is done, how sources are dependent, what is happening. But no journalist now loses his job because he gave an inaccurate story. It is correct. Next second, 1 minute TV is there, 1 minute something will happen, next minute doesn't disappear. So there's no accountability in the media these days, which is the first primary concern of any magazine or any media organization. Fact checking, credibility. If somebody has given a wrong news, he or she has to be punished. Now the opinion is becoming the news. One owner, I don't know his name, one of the owners of one of the newspapers told one of his editors, later on, I'm also witness to that, later on, that in the newspaper, advertising is only news, rest is publicity. He said this thing about 25 years ago. That is what's happening now. So this is the crisis of credibility of the media has never been so strong as it is today. Yes, there are exceptions, which are always there. Even now, there are credible exceptions. But more or less, you can say what is going to come tomorrow in the newspaper. So that is the dangerous signal for the media.
Thank you, Mr. Chawla. So, Mr. Puri, I'm linking it to some of the comments Mr. Chawla made. So the question again from the audience is, do you think media has to move more towards knowledge dissemination than news dissemination? I think in some sense it's what Mr. Chawla commented on.
Well, media has to do everything. There are different kind of media today for different things. Today, in fact, you don't get breaking news in the newspaper. You get breaking news on your phone or on TV. All events are covered on digital media or on TV on a live basis. Those are event-driven mediums. Newspapers and magazines are supposed to be far more analytical, give you perspective and so forth. Those changes may not have happened. So in terms of the media, I think that different mediums cater to different time in your day. You look at different things at different times. So media is a very splendored thing, and one must look at it that way, and not just look at it as one thing.
So if there's one,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Carry on.
So if there's one thing, and we are coming to the last 5 minutes, and so I want to kind of close with that one comment. If there's one thing that you think you would advise media to do to rebuild credibility, if I were to say that, what would it be? Asking all three of you, so we can go in any sequence.
Who are you asking first?
I want all three of you to comment, so maybe we'll start with Martin.
It's a loaded question because it implies that credibility is gone. I was interested in Mr. Chawla. I'm not anymore a regular consumer of Indian news. I used to be, but it's a long time ago. So I can't comment at all on what's happened on Indian media. I would say that as a general proposition, British media are about as lousy as they've been for most of my lifetime. I don't think the media, by the way, by which I'm private media organizations. The BBC is what it is, not changed very much despite the criticism. But basically, it has deteriorated. I think the impact of Rupert Murdoch has been remarkably bad. But I don't think it's fundamentally changed. And by the way, I meant by an editorial function, I mean looking after the quality of news. I don't mean opinion. And basically what has happened is that our media meet different audiences which have different expectations of the media, and some of them read their media not because they want to be informed, because they want to be told that what they think about the world is right and just and proper and everyone else is a bad person. And that's always something that the media have tried to do. And once you've created a product whose job is to do that, restoring the credibility of your product as a news and as a genuinely a news-oriented business is, I think, impossible. So my view, I have a very myopic view, which is I'm in a small part of the media business where I do think we do news. I think we're very clear about the difference between news and opinion, though I'm not saying we're perfect at it. Of course we're not. And our job is to retain our reputation. And by the way, if our journalists produce something that is obviously false, they get sacked. So, and I'm not saying that's true everywhere else, but of course, there are lots of businesses out there, it's certainly true in America too, which don't do what I would call journalism at all. But they are businesses and they are in the media's landscape. And I don't think they can improve their reputation because they don't have one and they're not interested.
Mr. Chawla?
I would say one thing about it, it can be a political statement as well. Barring few compulsions, I think media should follow the earlier system, fear none, favor none. And there should be more contrary views also to be seen in the newspapers and the electronic media. I think contrary views are now missing. They are not as eminent as the ruling party in the center or in the state gets from the local media. So you have to fear none, favor none, report as you see, as you listen, not go by the column, because I'm surprised this morning I'm doing a little bit of research. From Prime Minister downward, from the Chief Minister downward, they in the morning tweet with the clipping from the newspaper how good they are. That's a bad sign. I've never seen the newspaper becoming an tools of endorsement for political parties. That has to be, you have to get rid of that thing. Every day, there's 7 or 8 newspaper clippings or some statement from some editor or some Twitter account of some editor being replayed by the Prime Minister or Chief Minister or Congress Party. That is endorsement. Journalists becoming endorsement and politicians treating them as endorsement is a bad sign.
Thank you. Mr. Puri?
I would repeat myself. I would say follow the ethics of your profession. Follow the truth as best as you can obtain it. Right, and continue to do that. You have a social responsibility, and at the same time, make it a business too. So I think that still would be a space for that. I believe in the credibility of the media. I believe people will consume media in terms of in different ways. Some to be entertained, some to have confirmation bias. But there will always be a space for media which is credible, which is institutionalized, what Martin says. And I think that the more information which comes out, which is full of inaccuracies and prejudices, the more trusted brands will exist.
Thank you. I think the power of pens and voices in shaping public narrative is kind of personified by these three gentlemen. I think they're powerful brands in themselves. They work with powerful brands or build powerful brands, and they are themselves powerful brands. Thank you, gentlemen, for your thoughts. I think it's very, very important for all of us as a consumer, as a reader, to have fiercely independent and fearless media. I think it's always good for all of us to hear multiple views and be open to shaping our views. Thank you so much for all that you've done over the years, and look forward to hearing and reading all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great pleasure. Great pleasure. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for all delegates to joining in, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.